بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهديه واقتدى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وبعد. فقد قال جل وعلا في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا، فمن اضطر في مخمصة غير متجانف لإثم فإن الله غفور رحيم. صدق الله العظيم. Honorable scholars, respected brothers, elders, mothers and sisters, let me commence by putting on record my admiration to the organizers of this event. The forerunner I gather is Mawlana Abdullah Jinnah, and of course the skillful team around him for putting together such an amazing program. Honestly speaking, the aim and the motive of a gathering of this nature is that each one of us leave here more inspired, motivated and connected to the impeccable life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The narration is of Bayhaqi, and I think this is important that I say this, probably it's in the third day of the event, but be it as it may, that we're not just walking through the different events in the life of Nabi alayhi salam from a historical perspective. We're just not adding to our information. مَا ذَكَرَ ابن عمر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إلا بكى. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, for his entire life, whenever the mention of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was touched, approached, discussed, tears would trickle down his eyes uncontrollably. And unfortunately, by and large, we have somewhat inadvertently or deliberately distanced ourselves from the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But surely this is a brilliant initiative, and in a 3-day period, a fair amount has been covered. Hopefully it would propel us and inspire us to continue reading the life of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The topic assigned for me is the farewell Hajj of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But before I approach it, I just want to share with you one hadith to just, reflect over the charisma and the amazing personality and the magical touch the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. As parents, as tutors, we grapple to convince all our children that we love them equally. As a teacher, it's a challenging thing. You want to acknowledge one, you don't want to be insensitive to the other. You want to make a comment, but at the same time you need to be sensitive to somebody else who's trying in his own way. You want to laud one child, but you don't want to offend the other child. Can you imagine the charisma and the style and the character of the Prophet ﷺ, that in excess of 100,000 Sahaba, he leaves each one believing, I am the most beloved. And if you have the cap of a father or a tutor on your head, you'll appreciate the complexity of what I'm saying. But if you're not in that role, probably you won't be able to identify with it. It's a tall order, it's a big ask. And every person whom the Messenger ﷺ touched was touched by a different quality. And I think that's what, Mawlana alluded to so beautiful. Mawlana Abu Hurairah, may Allah preserve him, and all of the scholars here with afiyah and goodness, that the Messenger ﷺ tapped into every human with a different quality. Now, listen to the words of this particular Sahabi. لَقَدْ دَلَّنِي عَلَى هَذَا النَّبِيِّ الْأُمِّيِّ أَنَّهُ لَا يَأْمُرُ بِخَيْرٍ إِلَّا كَانَ أَوَّلَ آخِذٍ بِهِ وَلَا يَنْهَى عَنْ شَرٍّ إِلَّا كَانَ أَوَّلَ تَارِكٍ لَهُ وَأَنَّهُ يَغْلِبْ فَلَا يَبْطَرْ وَأَنَّهُ يُغْلَبْ فَلَا يُهْجِرْ وَأَنَّهُ يَفِي بِالْعَهْدِ وَيُنْجِزُ الْوَعْدَ أَشْهَدُ أَنَّهُ نَبِيٌّ. The thing that impressed me and intrigued me the most about this man is whenever he advocated a virtue, he was the first to execute it. How often, due to inconsistency, and I address myself first here, between our utterances and our actions, we create distress signals. We create turbulence. That whenever the Prophet ﷺ advocated a virtue, he was the first to implement it. And whenever he prohibited a vice, he was the first to abstain from it. وَأَنَّهُ يَغْلِبْ. And when victory fell in his lap, he was the most distant person from pride and arrogance. Today, unfortunately, people have pride before victory. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam had humility post-victory. You know, when you're so guaranteed, you're so certain about your inevitable victory, that's the trait of the infidels of Arabia. وَلَا تَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ خَرَجُوا مِنْ دِيَارِهِمْ بَطَرًا وَرِئَاءَ النَّاسِ وَيَصُدُّونَ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Allah sketches the image of Badr. And don't be like those arrogant people who thought victory was inevitable. They were pride, haughty and arrogant before they came on the battlefield. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he enters Makkah, وَذَقْلُهُ عَلَى رَاحِلَتِهِ, he dropped himself so much, his blessed chin was flush on the back of the conveyance. Here you call a boy up in the assembly and it's already a bit of a bounce. It was like 50 people in the assembly, man. Relax, man. Relax, You don't be sworn into office here or an inaugural speech here or it's a small audience, man. It's an assembly, man. And there's a chip on his shoulder and there's a bounce in his walk. And that was the وَأَنَّهُ يَغْلِبْ فَلَا يَبْطَرْ وَأَنَّهُ يُغْلَبْ. And sometimes his opponent will enjoy the upper hand over him, and that's the rhythm of life. In the hadith of Bukhari, when Hiraql engaged Abu Sufyan regarding the letter, and he said, هَلْ قَاتَلْتُمُوهُ? Did you people ever engage in battle with the Prophet ﷺ? We said, yeah, of course. We had our fair share of battles, skirmishes, etc. And how did it play out? Al-harbu baynana sijal, nanalu minhu wa yanalu minna. Sometimes we have the upper hand, sometimes he has the upper hand. He said, okay, that's fine. Because that's the nature of battle. But what's the quality of the Prophet ﷺ? وَأَنَّهُ يُغْلَبْ. Abba was his camel. كَانَتْ لَا تُسْبَقْ. No conveyance would ever surpass the conveyance of the Prophet ﷺ. But one day comes in a Bedouin, mounted on his conveyance, he gallops it at optimum, and he goes right ahead in front of the camel of the Prophet ﷺ. فَشَقَّ ذَلِكَ عَلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. So the companions became uneasy, but you know what, that constitutes bad behavior. How dare your car, your conveyance goes ahead. And the Prophet ﷺ said, relax, that's the pattern of life. Anything that goes forward, Allah drops it one day. I'm paraphrasing here, but that's the long and short. وَأَنَّهُ يُغْلَبْ. And sometimes his opponent gets the upper hand. فَلَا يُغْجِرْ. At the point when his opponent gets the upper hand, you'll never hear obscene or vulgar language from him. You never heard it from him at any time. But at the point where you are somewhat challenged and probably the opposite party gets an upper hand, how many of us lose our composure momentarily? How many of us lose our tongue at that time? We just start blurting, we start uttering, we say insensitive, obscene, vituperative, and the list continues. وَأَنَّهُ يَفِي بِالْعَهْدِ وَيُنْجِزُ الْوَحْدَ. And the Prophet ﷺ was a man who honored. I'm honestly saying, there's so much that has been conveyed, and we need to, imbibe it, internalize it. But if I can just take this one hadith, for me, our assembly, our convergence here is meaningful. But this companion said, this is what captured me in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. He makes a promise, he delivers on it. He makes a commitment, he honors it. So, you were obviously told about the incident of Badr, and Huzaifa ibn Yaman said, مَا مَنَعَنِي أَنْ أَشْهَدَ بَدْرًا إِلَّا كُنْتُ أَنَا وَأَبِي خَارِجَ الْمَدِينَةِ. The only reason that I couldn't participate in Badr is not that I wasn't there, and it's not that I wasn't aware of the virtue of Badr. And it's not like there wasn't need for reinforcement in Badr. We can run into Badr, and I'm sure they have expounded on it in great detail. To the extent when the likes of Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a had divulged some information regarding the invasion into Makkah by the Prophet ﷺ, and he had whispered this information to people in Makkah to secure a favor, to give comfort to his family. And Jibreel came and informed the Prophet ﷺ that one of your close associates has divulged some key information. And you need to intercept this woman, her name is Sarah. She's at Rawdat Akhaq, and Nabi Sallallahu said Ali and Abu Marthad Ghanawi. And he said, go there, and this woman has information, and bring it. And the information was intercepted, and it was brought in, and in that it was written, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, min Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. This is from Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a to the people of Makkah. Listen, Muhammad Sallallahu intends invading Makkah, take your necessary precautions. And the Prophet Sallallahu said, call Hatib. And Hatib was called up, and Allah reveals the verse. Surah Mumtahina in the 28th juz speaks about it in the first page in great detail. لا تتخذوا عدوي وعدوكم أولياء تلقون إليهم. Long story short is brought forward. Sayyidina Umar unsheaths his sword. Oh, Nabi of Allah, let's just write him off. Nabi Sallallahu said, Umar, he participated in Badr, analyze his mistake in relation to his contribution. Where's that in the Ummah today? Where's that in the Ummah today? We cannot refute the sacrifices of our legends, of the early people. لا يستوي منكم من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل أولئك أعظم درجة من الذين أنفقوا من بعد وقاتلوا. Those who came after the conquest of Makkah and those who came before, they cannot be the same. The Prophet ﷺ said, and he made a mistake. We're not, and that's the beauty, like Mawlana said, tolerance without compromise. We're not making his wrong into a right, but we're not magnifying the wrong. We're not viewing the wrong in isolation. View it in his other good. And he came forward and said, مَا كَفَرْتُ وَلَا ارْتَدَدْتُ. Let me start off by setting the record correctly. I am a Muslim and I remain a Muslim. My aim was not to betray you. I just needed to secure some favor from the people of Makkah because my wife and children are there. Others have family members, I don't. And as far as you, Nabi of Allah, you're the Prophet of Allah. So I knew my divulging is not going to avert Allah's aid from you. So I had two things. I was between a rock and a hard place. I didn't want to divulge, but then at the same time, my family sentiments, so I wanted to secure. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Amma hadha faqad sadaq. This man has spoken the truth. Umar, take a seat. He's a Badri, waqad shahida Badran. So that was the virtue of Badr. And then you said, like Huzaifa radiallahu anhu said, I'm on the outskirts of Medina. فَأَخَذَنَا كُفَّارُ قُرَيْشٍ. And the kuffar, intercept us. And they said, أَيْنَ تَقْصِدُونَ? Where you will head into? So we said, I'm going to Medina. They said, إِنَّكُمْ تُرِيدُونَ Muhammad, right? You want to go aid the army of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We said, لَا نُرِيدُ إِلَّا الْمَدِينَ. We only want to go to Medina. فَأَبَوْا أَن يُطْلِقُونَا إِلَّا بَعْدَ أَنْ أَخَذُوا الْعَهْدَ عَلَيْنَا أَلَّا نَنْصُرَ مُحَمَّدًا صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. They said, we'll only release you on the condition that you go from here, that you don't participate, reinforce, assist to aid Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We said, it's fine, it's fine. Made the commitment verbally, they released. We get to Medina, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is just leaving Medina. We go inside with his departure, we will meet on the outskirts. Oh, Nabi of Allah, can we join you? Please join us. 125 kilometers from Medina is Badr. We are, short of resources. We just join in. By way of discussion, I said, oh, Nabi of Allah, can I just narrate some events to you as we were coming through? Please, go for it. We were intercepted. Long story short, they wouldn't release us. Finally, they accept, we negotiate on the pretext that we don't join you. And Isa said, we honor the agreement we made with Abu Jahl also. نفي بعهودهم ونستعين الله عليهم. نفي بعهودهم. We made an agreement with John or Muhammad, Ibrahim or Peter. We honor it. And then we ask Allah to assist us. وأنه يفي بالعهد وينجز الوعد أشهد أنه نبي. The Sahabi said, I am blown away. I am convinced. I don't need to be told more about the impeccable character of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm convinced he's the Nabi. May Allah instill within us the true love of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So anyway, the topic is the farewell Hajj. In the 9th year of Hijrah, the command comes down of Hajj. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam prepares Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu that go, and under his leadership, tutorship and auspices, some 300 pilgrims perform Hajj. In the 10th year, the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam announces that I am going to be performing the Hajj. Can you imagine the euphoria, the jubilation, the excitement and the joy that rocks Medina? Can you imagine it? The Prophet ﷺ makes the announcement and news starts filtering in. And from the neighboring towns and places, people started converging in their numbers. وَوَافَاهُ فِي الطَّرِيقِ خَلَائِقْ لَا يُحْصَوْنَ. And as he's moving along, people are just joining on. فكانوا من بين يديه ومن خلفه وعن يمينه وعن شماله مد البصر. Wherever you look, people are just joining on. خرج من المدينة نهارا. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam departs for his historical Hajj. And everything documented in detail in the day. يوم السبت, on a Saturday. لخمس بقين من ذي القعدة. 5 days remaining of the month of Dhul Qa'dah. يوم السبت, Saturday, بعد أن صلى الظهر أربعا, after having offered Dhuhr Salah in Medina Munawwara. The brain freezes to imagine that moment. Allah's Nabi is leaving. He's made an announcement. People are coming in their numbers and their scores and their multitudes. Dhuhr Salah is performed in Medina. The Prophet ﷺ departs and embarks, and with him numbers start coming. With him are his 9 azwaj mutahharat radiyallahu anhunna. It just adds to that whole joy and excitement and ambience. Fatima radiyallahu anha is with him. Ali radiyallahu anhu was sent to Yemen in the month of Ramadan. Plans were made that he'll meet up direct in Makkah. So they leave and they exit from Medina Munawwara. And the entire group and cavalcade with him joins along and they move on. They arrive in Makkah, and I'm omitting so many things because of lack of time. They arrive in Makkah Mukarramah on the 4th of Dhul Hijjah. On the 4th of Dhul Hijjah, Nabi Sallallahu. So a good 9 to 10 day journey just from Medina to Makkah. Can you imagine the emotions and the motions and the things that had happened along the way? And you've seen Allah's Nabi. You're not going with any Hajj tour operator or any traveler or any sheikh or any individual. You're going with the paragon of Allah's creation. No words of any language can aptly encapsulate the good fortune that Sahaba had. When somebody came to a Sahabi and he said, Tuba li hatayn al-aynatayn allati ra'ata Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that I've just come here to look at those eyes that had the privilege of seeing Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam daily. They come into Makkah, the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then performs his circuit around the Kaaba, and then obviously the sa'i takes place. And then when he concludes his final sa'i at Marwa, now before he left, initially the command was that you could only make Hajj during the days of Hajj. You could only make Hajj during the days of Hajj. And then as a concession to the Ummah on the journey, the revelation came to the Prophet ﷺ that Umrah is also permissible. So Allah has created a concession that this Ummah on the journey of Hajj can include Umrah as well. Now when the Prophet ﷺ had left, at that stage, it was only that you could perform Hajj. Hence he then said, لَوْ أَنِّي اسْتَقْبَلْتُ مِنْ أَمْرِي مَسْتَدْبَرْتُ لَمْ أَسُقِ الْهَدْيَ. If I knew in advance what I knew subsequently, I wouldn't have come with my animal of sacrifice. So hadi, adnahu shatun, the least of which is your lamb or sheep, you have to slaughter it on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, Yawm al-Nahr, and then you exit from the sanctity of Ihram. But the Prophet ﷺ had come with his animal, so after completing the rituals of Umrah, he couldn't exit from the state of Ihram. So he remained as a muhrim, Yawm al-Ahad, Sunday, Yawm al-Ithnain, Monday, Yawm al-Thulatha, Tuesday, Yawm al-Arbi'a, Wednesday. فَلَمَّا كَانَ يَوْمُ الْخَمِيسِ ضُحًا, when it was Thursday, 8th of Dhul Hijjah, forenoon, تَوَجَّهَ بِمَنْ مَعَهُ مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ إِلَى مِنَى. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and all the loyal, devoted companions, they embark on this journey and they leave Makkah Mukarramah, heading to the plains of Mina. A moment never to be repeated in history. A moment never to be witnessed by the skies and the heavens ever again. He sallallahu alayhi wa sallam arrives in Mina. صلى الظهر والعصر والمغرب والعشاء والفجر. He performs 5 salah there, right? That is your Dhuhr salah, your Asr salah, Maghrib, Isha, Fajr. فَلَمَّا طَلَعَتِ الشَّمْسِ, when the sun rises, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam moves from there. And he now heads towards Arafah. As he comes to Arafah, and I'm just expediting here, قَدْ ضُرِبَتْ لَهُ الْقُبَّةِ, the tent was erected and was prepared. And then he comes, and at the time of Dhuhr salah, the 2 salah are merged, Dhuhr and Asr are merged. And then he gave his historical khutbah, and I'm going to try and share snippets from it and from the other khutbah as well. I must say to you, before we endeavor to dissect this historical khutbah of the Prophet ﷺ, we need to know he was the most articulate of all humans. His every khutbah was amazing. And can you imagine as he draws to the final years of his life, nay, the final moments, the final seconds, making it very clear to his companions, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ خُذُوا عَنِّي. Listen, observe, ask, engage, and learn. We're not meeting again. Can you imagine the composure and the challenge of that statement of Sahaba? Ask a devoted son if his father says, listen, I think my days are numbered. What crosses his mind? He knows the inevitable reality of death, but he doesn't want to entertain. He just shuts down to the idea because you don't prepare for that painful moment. And the Prophet ﷺ spells it out. And I often say this, and I say this without fear of contradiction. The love Sahaba had for the Messenger ﷺ wasn't, if I say they loved the Prophet ﷺ as I love my parents, or as I love my spouse or my children, by Allah, it's insulting their love. They loved the Prophet ﷺ more than our combined love for all of our beloveds. In other words, I don't love my parents, spouse, children, friends, neighbors, whoever it is, together as how one Sahabi individually loved the Messenger ﷺ, and the books of Seerah bear testimony to it. So anyway, the Prophet ﷺ by nature was a very articulate, and this is another final advisor, and he was a man who was very comprehensive in speech. The ulama say he summarized his entire 23 years in the last moment before he passed away. I mean, you try and do that. If I ask you summarize today, from morning till now into what you're asking for, brother, so many things. If I just go in what I was dreaming, it will take me 2 pages. Summarize morning till now, you can't do it. And the Prophet ﷺ summarized, and that's wahi, right? Allah summarizes human existence from birth to death in one verse. اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد. You cannot do that for one day, 1 week in your youth, your married life, pre-marriage, post-marriage, nothing. And Allah summarizes and condenses human existence in one verse. And what did the Prophet say in the last words? As-salah wa ma malakat aymanukum. Look after your prayer and be kind to your subjects. And that's what deen is all about. If prayer is in order, it's a strong indication to all your obligation to your Creator. And taking care of those that are under you is an indication to your obligation to fellow humans. If you will manage yourself with dignity in a position of authority, then all the more likely you will manage yourself aptly in positions when others have authority over you. And so there's this incident of Rimad radiallahu anhu, and then I move on to the khutbah. So the Imam Muslim makes mention of it, Akhraj al-Muslim. There was a Sahabi by the name of Rimad. He came from a tribe of Azd al-Shanu'a, and he used to treat people who were possessed by a demon, or influenced by an evil eye, or possessed by some spell. So he came to Medina and he said, Inni arqi min hadhihi riyah. I cure people who have any jinn or demon effects. فَسَمِعَ سُفَهَاءَ مَكَّةَ يَقُولُونَ إِنَّ مُحَمَّدًا صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ مَجْنُونَ. And he hears the foolish people of Makkah making this derogatory remarks that the Prophet ﷺ is insane. And we say to the world, and this is the aim, we study the seerah, so it can empower you, my brother, it can empower you, my sister, that we can intellectually engage people on a flight, in a bus, traveling. I mean, I often say, show me one faith that gives you guidelines how you behave with a fellow passenger on a flight, or on a car, or on a train, or you're hopping onto a coach and they're taking you to the aircraft. Well, Islam says there are rights how you deal with that person. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. There are etiquettes how you behave with the person sitting next to you in an aircraft, or you're standing in a bus and a coach and get into, probably aviation is my analogy because I fly, but be it anything for that matter, you're standing in a queue. وَالصَّاحِبِ بِالْجَنْبِ. There is a way you behave. So we're here to empower ourselves so that we can enrich our own lives and we can put the record correctly. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَعِذُكُمْ بِوَاحِدَةٍ أَن تَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ مَثْنَى وَفُرَادًا ثُمَّ تَتَفَكَّرُوا. I ask you one thing, and I advise you one thing. Stand in isolation, or stand in pairs, and then put your thinking cap on, and be honest and sincere, and be candid. مَا صَاحِبُكُمْ مِنْ جَنَّةٍ. You know for a fact, Muhammad ﷺ has no trace of insanity. Why do you blurt these things? Why do you make these derogatory comments? Why do you make these nasty things? So he heard these remarks that they said Muhammad ﷺ, na'udhu billah, is mentally impaired. And what an insult. Wahab ibn Munabbih has said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى لَمْ يُعْطِ جَمِيعَ النَّاسِ مِنْ بَدْءِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَى انْقِضَائِهَا مِنَ الْعَقْلِ فِي جَنْبِ عَقْلِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم إِلَّا كَحَبَّةِ رَمْلٍ مِنْ بَيْنِ رِمَالِ الدُّنْيَا. That the combined intellect of the whole world is like one dust particle, and the exclusive intelligence of the Messenger ﷺ is like the deserts of the world. And then you say this man is insane. Can you imagine the level of tolerance in the Prophet ﷺ? The man comes to him and said, listen, I'm so sorry, I believe you're mentally impaired, and I've treated a lot of people. Allow me an opportunity, I'll treat you. This is your level of intelligence, and somebody can come and tell you this here. The ulama say the level of Yusuf alayhi salam's sabr cannot be explained in words, that the brothers of Yusuf are saying that, you know what, in saraka, faqad saraka akhullahu min qabl. Sorry, king, man. You know what? I know he's a thief, and actually not only him, he had a brother Yusuf. He was also a thief, man. You saying it to Yusuf, oblivious that this is Yusuf, and saying that he's a thief, and his brother was a bigger thief. And at that time, to contain your emotions, فَأَسَرَّهَا يُوسُفُ فِي نَفْسِهِ وَلَمْ يُبْدِهَا لَهُ. Who can say that? You're having a heated argument with your spouse or your partner or whatever it is. You know, the wife told the husband that, you know, I'm losing my mind. I'm losing it. He said, my love, you have to lose it because every day you're giving me a portion. Anyway, so what did the Prophet ﷺ, we learn from his teachings. When the man said this to him, he didn't retort. He didn't respond. He said, Inna alhamdulillah, ahmaduhu wa asta'inuhu wa astaghfiruhu, man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu, wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. We hear it, we say it, we read it, we don't know Arabic, so we don't know what it means. He said, أعد علي هذه الكلمات, repeat it. فقد بلغنا قاموس البحر. This is the pinnacle of excellence, of eloquence. And then he says, هلم يدك, give me your hand, أبايعك, I want to accept your faith now and now. And that's it. And remember my opening words, this was the Prophet ﷺ, every quality, may Allah make, unfortunately, Allah forgive us, every quality of us is taking people away from Islam. And every quality of Nabi ﷺ brought people into Islam. You know, the way he treats his servants, hey, really, I don't want to work for him, and that's not a religion I want to be part of. The way this man is with his neighbor, really, this is not something. Every interaction of ours is giving people the wrong notion. So Habib Sassim is walking and with him is a flock of sheep. And then a person is looking with the side of his eyes. Poor man, pauper, breaking even, living below the bread line, is looking. وَهُوَ يَرْمُقُهُ. And Nabi Sassim observes his admiration. يَعْجِبُكَ مَا تَرَى يَا أَبَا وَهْبٍ. Oh, Abu Wahab, you like what you see. I love it. Look from far. I love it. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam just looked and tapped into it. He said, take it. Take it. So he won't say take a test drive, use it. No, man, my network is down. My battery power is weak. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, take it. His words that he said, I marvel at this. He said, مَا طَابَتْ نَفْسُ أَحَدٍ بِهَذَا إِلَّا نَفْسُ نَبِيٍّ. You're a prophet. You're a prophet. I'm convinced. No human can display such generosity without a crack in his voice, without a twitch in his eye, without hesitation, without reservation, without apprehension, without a second thought, without going back and forward. Such calmness and such selflessness. You're a prophet, man. You're a prophet. I don't need more. I'm saying, look at his life, everything. This is the way he delivered, and this is how it was. Recently I was flying, so it was in Ramadan. Brother came to me, hey, some nice iftar pack you got. I said, yeah, join me inshallah. Hey, iftar time came, he came to join me. Now, you know, sometimes we say it, but we don't mean it. We boarded the flight, and he came there. I said, yeah, no, join me, brother. He said, you sure? No, of course, man. But I know how sure I am. I know how sure I am. Right? And you ask yourself, we don't say these, we don't mean these things. We just utter these things. But what's the reality of it? So he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam then delivered his khutbah. Ayyuhan nas, O people, inna dima'akum wa amwalakum wa a'radakum alaykum haramun ka hurmati yawmikum hadha. Now you need to know, and I need to understand, it's his final moments, it's his closing moments, it's his culminating moments. So he's going to say, every speech was so amazing. Can you imagine what those last speech is going to be? And what do you say to this ummah at that critical moment where you're wrapping up and you're closing up? And that speaks volumes on the importance of his message. Your blood, your wealth, your honor is sacred. Just like this day is sacred, this location is sacred, this month is sacred. كل شيء من أمر الجاهلية موضوع تحت قدمي. All the practices of the era of darkness are done with. We've closed the door. They are beneath my feet and I've closed it. Now it's very easy, and we're 24 years or 25 years into democracy, we continue to grapple, do we address the discrepancies of the previous regime, or do we move on and the debate continues to feature on talk shows and radio platforms, etc., etc. It's very easy to close the door on the past when you are a victor, but not when you're the victim. When you've perpetrated the wrong, you've done the wrong, then say, no, let bygones be bygones. Now we start in fresh. You know, children, when they play Monopoly and one loses, no, now we start nicely. Now we play in a fresh game. Because we went for Salah, we came back. Now, my father said we mustn't fight. You know, like kids. Like now we, you know what, just like reverse things. And let have it a clean slate. It's lovely to advocate shutting the door on the past when you are a victor. But when you're a victim and you've been wronged, you've been violated, you've been oppressed, you've been insulted, then how many of us can muster the courage to close the door? And the Prophet ﷺ said, وَدِمَاءُ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ مَوْضُوعَ تَحْتَ قَدَمَيَّ. And the bloodshed and the unjust killing and the blood spilling that had happened in the days of darkness, I am closing that chapter so nobody takes revenge. But I start off by forgiving the perpetrators who killed my nephew. Who has that in them? You sit in a simple argument, marriage thing, and you're resolving that and you're arbitrating. And we're still bringing up the old wounds, and we cannot cross that. We come to this, it's a glitch, it's a snag, it's a setback. We just cannot scale beyond that because we're digging up the old wounds. And the Prophet ﷺ said, وَدِمَاءُ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ مَوْضُوعَةٌ تَحْتَ قَدَمَيَّ. And there was killing and there was bloodshed. Now let's just balance out the act. Whoever was killed and killed, we close in that chapter. وَإِنَّ أَوَّلَ دَمٍ أَضَعُ مِنْ دِمَائِنَا. And the first unjust killing that I am pardoning, the Mubni Rabi'at ibn al-Harith. I am forgiving Harith. Who was Harith? Harith was Nabi Sallallahu uncle. Again, we need to know, and I'm hopeful that inshallah this is going to stimulate us, because I keep on saying to my audience that whenever I make a reference to some point of the seerat of the Prophet ﷺ, I wish every attendee on the strength of the rich knowledge he has of the Prophet ﷺ, he can flap through the archives in his own mind and open up that particular chapter, and I could just give you an anecdotal reference and we could move on. But lo and behold, for many of us, these references are new, unheard of, never approached, never studied. So the Prophet ﷺ, with his father Abdullah, there were 12 uncles, 4 of whom had seen Islam, 8 of whom had not seen Islam. From the 4 that seen Islam, 2 accepted Islam, Hamza radiallahu anhu and Abbas radiallahu anhu. 2 had not accepted Islam. But then there's a further division between the 2. Out of the 2 that did not accept Islam, one supported him passionately, and that was Abu Talib. In fact, there's one verse in the 7 juz in Jalalain, the tafsir is mentioned, وَهُمْ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنْهُ وَيَنْأَوْنَ عَنْهُ. So commonly translated, وَهُمْ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنْ اتِّبَاعِ النَّبِيِّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ وَيَنْأَوْنَ وَيَبْعَدُونَ. They prevented, the infidels prevented people from following the Prophet ﷺ. وَيَنْأَوْنَ, and they distanced themselves. وَقِيلَ, it's in Jalalain, نَزَلَتْ فِي أَبِي طَالِبٍ. And while one opinion says, no, this verse was revealed regarding Abu Talib. وَجَمْعُ الضَّمِيرِ بِاعْتِبَاءِ أَتْبَاعِهِ. And then the plural in the context is because of his followers. وَهُمْ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنْهُ أَيْ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنْ أَذَى النَّبِيِّ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. They prevented people from harming him. How dare you say that to my Nabi? How dare you say that to my nephew? In fact, under this verse, that أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. We found you as an orphan and we sheltered you. All the people who are highlighted as guardians, custodians, caregivers and well-wishers, Abu Talib also features in there by the Mufassirin. So these were people who rallied. يَنْهَوْنَ, they protected. وَيَنْأَوْنَ عَنْ وَيَنْأَوْنَ. But sadly, when he came to embracing the faith, he withdrew. In the Hashya of Jalalain, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, this quotation is mentioned, and that was so painful for Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And my brain just freezes. And I often mention, in fact, under this ayah, let me first quote this and mention this. that when the Prophet ﷺ told his uncle Abu Talib, you've done so much for me except Islam, he said, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُ بِأَنَّ دِينَ مُحَمَّدٍ مِّنْ خَيْرِ أَدْيَانِ الْبَرِيَّةِ دِينًا. Oh my uncle, oh my nephew, I am preached and I am convinced about the truthful nature of your faith. And it's not like I don't believe. I'm just afraid, what will people say? You know what? Why don't you have a simple function? People will wonder, you know what? What will people say? That's an idol in its own way. That's an idol. In Tafsir al-Uthmani, under this ayah, إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ, Allama Shabir Ahmad al-Uthmani says, we discuss this ayah in the context of where it appears, and we avoid going into detailed discussion, lest inadvertently we cause pain to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. That's respect. You know your Ustad's son is probably a rebel. You say, Ustad, your son got some bad habits. He knows, right? You're only rubbing his pain. You're not helping coming closer to his heart. We cannot deny the wrong is the wrong. But by you approaching that sensitive thing and hurting him, you are actually jeopardizing your relationship. This is a reality, it's a truth. We naktafi bima qala Allah wa qala al-Rasul. We suffice on the discussion of Allah and His Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So anyway, the Prophet ﷺ had 12 uncles. I mentioned the four, one who accepted, two didn't accept Islam, but one supported and didn't, and the other one was, of course, Abu Lahab, whose name was Abdul Uzza. So Harith was his uncle. Harith's son was Rabi'ah, who was the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. Rabi'ah's son, the narration doesn't mention his name, كَانَ مُسْتَرْضَعًا فِي بَنِي سَعْدٍ. He was being suckled and nursed in Banu Sa'd. This is the very tribe which nursed and suckled our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So can you imagine the honor of this tribe? The members from the family of Nabi alayhi salam were nursed in this particular tribe. فَقَتَلَتْهُ هُذَيْلٌ. While this child, this infant, this toddler was being nursed and suckled, the tribe of Hudayl killed this child, and the revenge was not taken. But at this point in Arafat, as I say, we close the chapter on all unjust murders. I'm the first one to forgive the perpetrators and the killers of those who killed my nephew. We're done with this. We will not be taking any revenge. If that's the way we go forward, we will make progress. But and that's the difference between the teachings of Islam and anyone else. Islam says justice, but then everybody says justice. But Islam says, اِعْدِلُوا وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ. That's how you must be just, even if you have to stand up and be a man and say, I am wrong. Respectfully, my honorable father and venerable mother are wrong. Awil walidain. You don't trespass the limits of respect, but you don't make their wrong into a right. You don't make their wrong into a right. So that's I forgive. Then, وَرِبَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ مَوْضُوعٌ. The usury and the interest that was floating around in the days of darkness. I am closing the chapter on this. وَأَكْلِهِمُ الرِّبَى وَقَدْ نُهُوا عَنْهُ. Allah speaks about the Bani Israel, how they consumed interest and they were prohibited from it. So interest was, and who was again the forerunner of running and operating this type of interest, conventional interest, which at that time was none other than the uncle of the Prophet Abbas radiallahu anhu. Abbas radiallahu anhu was given up big money and taking exorbitant amounts of interest. And I say it unequivocally, categorically, explicitly, the chapter on interest has been closed. And any surplus interest, usually money owed to my uncle Abbas, has been forgiven by me. You don't owe him a dime. Yes, lakum ru'usu amwalikum. He can claim his capital investment, but any other interest is done with. What's the loud message? Start by forgiving yourself. Start by overlooking. You know, there's an amazing thing. When I just came in, Mawlana Abdullah, you first told me 45 minutes and you stopped. Okay. I'll stop. Midstream, I have no issues. You deal with the public. May Allah bless him. You know, I have some fond memories of Mawlana Abdullah, and I think I'm going to seize the moment. When we were studying, and may Allah bless him and accept him, I'm talking of probably in the mid-90s, Allah had favored some of us in the madrasa, a handful of students, to go out and give some humble sermons. So every Fridays, we used to get together, and I'm talking of probably 93, 94. And we used to sit together and then just run our thoughts, cross our ideas, where you're going, what you're speaking, what's the event. And it used to be such a fond memory. And then things evolved and moved on, and then, mashallah, he relocated to the States. And I still remember landing in LA and coming to his masjid, and he was hosted there, and we were hosted by his place, and I gave a talk there, and he took us around, and we spent some good time. We traveled in US, Chicago, Miami, LA, San Francisco, San Jose, where and where across the length and breadth, and he was the official host. And then obviously we end up in Medina, and he gives us a tour guide. So really, this is Ibn Battuta of our times. May Allah preserve him with goodness and reward him and everyone together, inshallah. So, Abbas radiallahu anhu, Nabi Sallallahu forgives everything. Better. Nabi Sallallahu said, finish, we're done with interest. Now, my brothers, we could be involved in interest dealings, and we cannot be sitting down and discussing and debating. Do we continue? Do we reflect? Okay, let's see end of the day. Let's see end of the month. No. وَمَا كَانَ لِمُؤْمِنٍ وَلَا مُؤْمِنَةٍ إِذَا قَضَى اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ أَمْرًا أَن يَكُونَ لَهُمُ الْخِيَرَةُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِمْ. When Allah and His Nabi decree, we cannot be asking ifs and buts. In fact, Imam Abu Hanifa says, أَشَدُّ آيَةٍ فِي الْقُرْآنِ. The most stern verse in the Quran is this verse in the 4th juz where Allah says, لا تأكلوا الربا أضعافا مضاعفة واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون وأطيعوا الله والرسول لعلكم ترحمون. And then Allah says, وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. Fear that fire which was prepared for the disbelievers. So it follows up in the discussion of interest. That if you indulge and dabble in interest, then brace yourself for a fire that was actually meant for someone else, but due to your grave offense, that fire will also envelope you. Abbas radiallahu anhu, on the occasion of Badr, he was intercepted by the Prophet ﷺ, Sahaba, etc. And then he had to give ransom. And here again, people will talk of many things. Mufti Shafi Sahib Rahmatullah has written this year, that can you imagine the clemency and the gracious nature of Islam, that these people who were so hostile, who were at the throats of the Muslims, suddenly they're given a mean ransom. Just simple amount, give money and earn your freedom. Like, you have them in your grip, and Islam advocates, no, just let them give basic ransom and they're free. So Abbas radiallahu anhu comes in the custody of the Muslims, and he says to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, as I was coming, I had 700 gold coins, the Muslims intercepted me, and they took that money, so consider that 700 as my ransom. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, no, that was before you were captured, and that has become spoils for the Muslims. Now you've got to give separate ransom, and you know what, actually you should be giving for your two cousins as well, Aqil ibn Abi Talib, that is the son of Abu Talib, the brother of Ali radiallahu anhu, and Nawfal ibn Harith. You're going to be giving for them as well. And then Allah revealed the verse, يَا أَيُّهَا النَّبِيُّ قُلْ لِمَنْ فِي أَيْدِيكُمْ مِنَ الْأَسْرَى إِنْ يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ خَيْرًا يُؤْتِكُمْ خَيْرًا مِمَّا أُخِذَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ. Say unto them, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to the captives in your hand, إِنْ يَعْلَمِ اللَّهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ خَيْرًا. If Allah knows there's something good in your heart, and keep your intentions clean, my brothers and sisters. When your intentions are noble and they are honest and sincere, you might have rocky moments and turbulent times, but ultimately the sun will shine and rise above you, and you will see the clear skies and the bright horizons, and things will fall in your favor. If Allah knows there's good in your heart, يُؤْتِكُمْ خَيْرًا مِمَّا أُخِذَ مِنْكُمْ. Allah will give you much more than what you lost here. And Abbas radiallahu anhu said, I'm a testimony to this ayah. In Badr I was captured, I lost my 700 gold coins. Then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I had to pay an additional amount, 20 uqiyah, which I paid. Then I had to pay for my cousin Aqil ibn Abi Talib, and then I had to also pay for Nawfal ibn Harith, and I paid for these nephews of mine. And then Allah blessed me with Iman and Islam, and today I have 20 servants and slaves, and each one's income is more than 20,000. And that's besides the fact, he goes on to say, that the greatest joy, that's my material, mundane return, وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ. Allah will forgive you. I mean, you cannot ask for anything better than Allah has forgiven. So the Prophet ﷺ says, وَدِمَاءُ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ مَوْضُوعًا. Then he said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. Fear Allah when it comes to women. فَإِنَّكُمْ أَخَذْتُمُهُنَّ بِأَمَانِ اللَّهِ وَاسْتَحْلَلْتُمْ فُرُوجَهُنَّ بِكَلِمَةِ اللَّهِ. That a woman has come into your care and your custody through the intervention of the name of Allah. So understand, I'm saying to you, and I hope I can drive this point because I don't want to be hopping too much, but whatever comes in my mind, I hope it's objective digression. The thing is, this is a key, it's final, it's concluding. So he's highlighting the most pertinent issues. And in that, if the Ummah holds on to that, it's the ultimate. If you hold on to this, it's done. And in that, he addresses the issue of marriage and marital relationship. And he simplifies it in two words. Honor the woman, respect the woman, and understand that she's come into your custody through the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he said to the woman, and it is your duty to honor your husband, and remember, you don't allow for any person to enter his house but with whom he is happy. Any person coming in, you know there's a particular woman, she comes and she charaways your wife. Right? And then things go haywire and they go pear-shaped. And now you sit and wonder why, what and how. So be sensitive. There's one hadith that I quote to married couples and even in my talks, and I find that to be the most single, profound, prophetic guidance in marital conflict. I've read, can't claim too much, but counseled to a fair amount, and back and forward I come back to this one hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and it is dual, it applies to both, although the context is from the husband to a wife. لا يفرق مؤمن مؤمنة إن كره منها خلقا رضي منها آخر. For me, that sums it up for a husband to a wife, that don't despise your spouse. If something about her offends you, surely there are 1,000 things about her that impress you. You would have a sister, he's done this to me, he's done this to me. Okay, sister, do I phone your husband? But Mawlana is a good man also. I won't lie, he spends a lot. He does for my pet. Oh, hang on then. Hang on, my sister. Let's analyze things in the greater picture, and that's the Prophet ﷺ said. So look at the beauty. The Prophet ﷺ is not saying that wrong is right. That wrong remains wrong and it's there. We're not shunning and shirking and avoiding this here. But we're saying, let's look at the right, cut your losses and move on. And then he ﷺ said, وَإِنَّكُمْ تُسْأَلُونَ عَنِّي, and you would be asked regarding me, فَمَا أَنْتُمْ قَائِلُونَ, what would you people say? And they said, نَشْهَدُ أَنَّكَ قَدْ بَلَّغْتَ وَأَدَّيْتَ وَنَصَحْتَ. O Nabi of Allah, we will say, you did a thorough job, you conveyed with absolute certainty. And then he said, Allahumma shahad. Can you imagine how emotional that moment was? Allah is going to ask you about me, what would you say? O Nabi of Allah, we will say that you delivered with diligence. Allah, you be my witness. Allah, you be my witness. And then he moves on. وَأَرْضَفَ أُسَامَةَ بْنَ زَيْدٍ. I just want to draw some deductions, Muratullah, and conclude, inshallah. I'm ready to end. Right. No, really, I don't want to. So anyway, the Prophet ﷺ then moves on, and I'm going to omit this here, and then he comes to Muzdalifah, etc. And in the first stage, he takes Usama ibn Zayd, and then he takes Fadl ibn Abbas, etc., etc. But just few things which I read by one author, he analyzes the khutbah of the Prophet ﷺ, and he makes his deductions. And probably those would be like how Mawlana Abu Hurairah had highlighted the last points, and maybe that would be, a message to drive home. The first thing the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, Dima'ul Jahiliyyah mawdu'atun tahta qadamayya. He said, the blood spilling and killing and unjust murder is beneath my feet. And I have closed the chapter on all the things of the past. Why? لأن المسلم, because a believer, when he repents, reforms, rehabilitates, and he lives a new life. لأن الحياة الجديدة التي يحياها المسلم بعد إسلامه حياة لا صلة لها برجز المازي وأدرانه. That when I've made a change in my life, I cannot be carrying on with my shenanigans and virtue. I want to be married and I still want to flirt. I want to be earning halal, but at the same time, you know what, I got some evil habits now and then, I got to do this here. No, there is simply no way you can put the two things together. بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرَ أَمَامَهُ. You must see in Tafsir Uthmani under this ayah was written. Many a times man stalls his repentance, not because he's convinced on the truth, but because he can't wean himself of his bad habits. He can't wean himself. No, I want to change, inshallah, but when I go for Hajj, inshallah, when they say after 40 you must change. It seems to be here like that, after 40 it's good and all that. Then you mature, the Anbiya got wahi at that time. Why? بَلْ يُرِيدُ الْإِنسَانُ لِيَفْجُرْ. Why? Because every Saturday my body is itching for my habits. Every day my hands are itching to go onto sites that I wasn't supposed to. So لأن الحياة الجديدة التي يحياها المسلم بعد إسلامه لا صلة لها برجز المال وأضراره. That a believer, when he makes a change, that's it. May Allah make us that we can make those changes now. The second thing, the Prophet ﷺ, I didn't even go into those aspects, where he cautions us against sins. لأن الذنوب والخطايا تفعل بالفرد ما لا يفعله العدو بعدوه. Because sins destroy us more than our enemy can unleash any pain upon us. The infliction of our sins, right? Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu said, Jazawul ma'asiyah al-wahnu fil ibadah, wa dhiqu fil ma'isha. The immediate harm of sin is that you become sluggish in good and there's economic restrictions. ما أصابكم من مصيبة فبما كسبت أيديكم ويعفو عن كثير. ما أصابك من حسنة فمن الله وما أصابك من سيئة فمن نفسك. There's so many verses, so sins. The third thing the Prophet ﷺ has taught us here is, in this hadith, al-ukhuwa bayna al-muslimin, the relationship between believers. And in that he mentioned, and I'm just drawing the deductions, but I didn't go into the aspect of the hadith, لا يحل لمسلم, it's not permissible for a Muslim to take from another brother إلا بطيب نفس منه, but that which he gives happily. So you don't impose on someone, you don't compel someone, you don't put him under duress, you don't make him awkward, you don't make him uncomfortable, you don't burden and impose and invade a person. And that's exactly what is happening. The Prophet ﷺ comes to visit Uthman ibn Mad'un, and he realizes that Uthman was having a private moment with his spouse. And when he came to the door, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَعَلَّنَا عَجَّلْنَا. I think Uthman, we got you on a bad moment, you were with your spouse. He said, yes, O Nabi of Allah. They were honest. There was nothing like, that somebody rings the bell and everything, oh, they're your brother. Your brother doesn't know what time to come. I can tell you again, hey, Ibrahim, come in, we're thinking of you. This is how we live it. But the Quran says, وَإِن قِيلَ لَكُمُ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا. If you knock the door and they tell you, go away, please don't come in now. Which one of us can practice this? Neither the one saying it, nor the one receiving it. We both take offense. But it's a verse of the Quran. I'm not saying chase people. Let me qualify my statement. I'm saying there are moments that are not appropriate. And if you go to someone and he says, please go, then return. It's pure for his heart and pure for your heart. The time is not right. Don't impose on someone. Mufti Shafi Sahib has written the whole rules of phone, and that was the regular phone. Imagine these phones. Don't impose. إِلَّا بِطِيبِ نَفْسٍ مِّنْهُمْ. And then the fourth thing the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّ دِمَاءَكُمْ وَأَمْوَالَكُمْ عَلَيْكُمْ حَرَامٌ كَحُرْمَةِ يَوْمِكُمْ هَذَا فَلَا تَرْجِعُوا بَعْدِي كُفَّارًا يَضْرِبُ بَعْضُكُمْ رِقَابَ بَعْضٍ. That don't turn into apostates post my demise, where you are actually killing one another. There's a hadith, it's in Kanzul Ummal, where the Prophet ﷺ told the Sahaba that today you don't have food and a time will come, سَتَرْتُمْ بُيُوتَكُمْ كَمَا تُسْتَرُ الْكَعْبَةِ. You will decorate the Kaaba like how you decorate your house. And before one platter will be raised, the next platter will be brought. And they said, oh, Nabi of Allah, there will be so much wealth and affluence, we will be well and we will be comfortable. And he said, no, today you're thirsty for drinks and it's not available, and that day you'll be thirsty for the blood of your brother. And this is the sad reality. I quoted this poem the other day in one of my talks in Urdu, and I'll say it again. They say, जब तीर लगाता तब इतना दर्द न हुआ गालिब, जख्म का एहसास तब हुआ जब कमान देखी अपनों के हाथों में. When the arrow struck me, I was oblivious of the pain. But when I looked closely and I seen, oh, my brother released the arrow, now it started paining me till my death. I couldn't recover from the pain. I could live with the arrow. I could live with the bullet wound. But when I realized who released the bullet on me, who released, and I seen it's my own kind, but that's my blood. We share one faith. This is something I couldn't make peace with. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ فِي النِّسَاءِ. He said, fear Allah with women. And in another narration, because he gave a khutbah in Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, etc., he said, fear Allah with regards to the servants. نَمُوذَجَانِ مِنَ الضُّعَفَاءِ. In that he was saying, stand with the vulnerable, stand with the weak, stand with the feeble. We have, the 16 days of activism against abuse of woman and child, and the continues. But how much has happened in our society for the protection of the vulnerable sector? وَهَلْ تُرْزَقُونَ إِلَّا بِضُعَفَائِكُمْ. You've been sustained by the weak in your house. You're not taking care of your child or your mom. Their presence is taking care of you. إِنَّ مِنْ إِجْلَالِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. Honoring Allah is to honor the old people. In this ayat of Surah Takwir, وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ. My mind is running, sorry, but this is amazing. So Allah speaks, وَإِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ, when the sun loses its brightness, وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ, and the stars will collapse, وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ, and the mountains will move, وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ, and a 10-month pregnant camel will be roaming around freely. Like you say, Z3, M3 with a full tank, nobody wants to drive it. Ishar, the 10-month pregnant, عُطِّلَتْ. وَإِذَا الْوُحُوشُ حُشِرَتْ, the wild animals will come away into city. وَإِذَا النُّفُوسُ زُوِّجَتْ, when the souls will be paid with the body. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ, and then when the child that was aborted or killed alive will be asked, My innocent child, why did they kill you? And Mufti Shafi Sahib Rahmatullah writes in Marif al-Quran, Qiyamah will address every exploitation, every abuse, every injustice. But why does Allah highlight and magnify here the killing of that unjust child? Why? Because this is such an innocent child that the very guardians are the perpetrators. The people who were supposed to protect this vulnerable child and stand and say, that's my child, the very mother said, ultrasonically proven that the child is alive. The mother who's supposed to say, that's my child, the mother says, perform the termination. So Allah says, if you abuse, I stand as the guardian of the child. So what's the message of the Prophet ﷺ? Stand by the weak. And then what did he say in the last command, and I conclude here, he sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, that التعاون بالدولة الإسلام على تطبيق أحكام الإسلام والالتزام بما شرع الله ولو كان الحاكم عبدا حبشيا. That support a cause of good, support a cabinet, support a movement, provided they are ruling on the fundamentals of Islam, even if it's not a man of your ethnicity that's in the driving seat. Even if you don't share your own color, he doesn't share your own faith, he doesn't share your own color or your own ethnicity or your own, background or traditional values. He shares the truth. وَلَوْ كَانَ عَبْدًا حَبْشِيًّا. Even if he is a slave with dark skin, when he is obeying Allah, then follow him. And then the Prophet ﷺ spoke about racism. But I heard from one scholar once in North America, was in a conference, and he said something and it really struck a chord with me. He said the Prophet ﷺ, when he addressed the issue of racism, he said, لا فضل لعربي على عجمي ولا لعجمي على عربي. And this scholar mentioned this so amazingly. He said, study the books. People throughout the ages and centuries have spoken about racism. But how many have spoken about reverse racism? Everybody said the white doesn't have virtue over the black, and the Arab doesn't have virtue over the non-Arab. But how many said the non-Arab doesn't have virtue over the Arab? How many said the black doesn't have virtue over the white? These are the words of the Prophet ﷺ. He spoke of racism and reverse racism. There is simply no place for racism in Islam. That somebody seen Abu Dhar with the same garb and his slave with the same garb. And he said, Abu Dhar, what's this all about? He said, I taunted him. I said, Yabna Sauda. This is mentioned in the footnotes of Bukhari with reference to Qastalani there. I said, oh, the son of a dark-skinned woman. And he says, hey, what did you say, Abu Dhar? What did you say? إِنَّكَ امْرُؤٌ فِيكَ جَاهِلِيَّةٌ. Oh, Abu Jahl, you have accepted Islam, but the stench of ignorance is still loud. You better change yourself. And that was Sahaba. They instantly changed. There were other points, but I wrap up, and I apologize for going over my mark, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless every brother, sister, organizer, well-wisher who have put together this event. And may this spur you, motivate you, and inspire you, and propel you, that you keep the Sirat al-Mustafa at your bedside, and every day you read about the life of the Prophet ﷺ. In our interactions, we need to speak about it. There's this beautiful analogy that a brother mentioned in one talk. I was in Malaysia this year. He said there are two types of people. You have, one is a thermometer and one is a thermostat. Oh, what you're talking about here. He said you have two types. You have a thermometer and a thermostat. One is the thermometer that just gives you the readings. It's hot, it's cold, it's 35, it's 25, it's 18. And one is the thermostat that you can start regulating it. And we need to become thermostats. We can sit and complain, moan and groan. Things are like this here. But if we start the seerah in our life, in our homes, in our families, we can become thermostats. We start changing the temperature outside and we start regulating it. Allah inspire us all. Wa sallallahu wa sallam.